Regular listeners to the show will know that I am not the hugest fan of the Tennessee Titans, and this year that will remain mainly because they're a bit confusing from a fantasy point of view. And I think I'm being very kind when I say confusing, but there are a couple of players, at least we're going to be interested to see how they do for the real life NFL, but also for fantasy. Starting first with Mr. 101 in the NFL draft this year, Mr. Cam Ward. Are we on an in for fantasy yet or not?
Yeah, I mean, at least the Titans have an exciting, interesting quarterback for the first time in a while. The number one overall pick, as you've mentioned, will be a week one starter for a franchise who are just desperate for a few wins. I don't think they really want much more than that. Cam Ward, as we've discussed pre-draft, great arm strength, a really good pocket passer who can scramble. Not really a dual threat, like Allen, Jackson, or Daniels, but a definite threat. He set the NCAA record with 158 career passing touchdowns, including a massive 39 last season, as you can see. Also, I think a benefit for the Titans is that the O-line was rebuilt during free agency. So there's hope for Panthers fans that this will bear fruit. Plus,
Panthers fans? Why are they hopeful?
Panthers fans, Titans fans, both awful franchises. Sorry, Caroline. so there's hope for Titans fans that it will bear fruit. He's got weapons, as we'll talk about. He's definitely not, a quarterback that you're going to be, banging down the door to draft. But he's one that might grow into the season. I think his ADP of QB 21 is probably about right. And I agree with what you've said, a potential streaming quarterback as the season goes on.
It's a player that I think there's positive as is he might be useful at times for fantasy. I think we've been very much reminded after a couple of exceptions to the rule of how tricky it is for rookie quarterbacks to come into the league and be productive straight away. It's often very tricky when you are the number one pick overall because you're coming into a team that were the worst team in the league the year before. Receiving options, he has some, just none that I'm massively excited or optimistic about. Yeah, I think for me, I'm loads more interested in Cam Ward from Dynasty than I am for redraft. And I'm not really that interested in from Dynasty either. I think out of the two of us, I was much lower on Cam Ward pre-draft. And I don't know. No one's seen anything since then because he's not played since then. But for me, the jury is out. But I'd like to be proven wrong because he could be a really exciting player.
Yeah, he seems to have good attitude. He looks very solid. And, I don't dislike the Titans. I think, it'd be nice if they got a few wins. So hopefully he'll have a solid season. But fantasy-wise, maybe one who won't do much for you.
Who is up next, Ed?
Yeah, we moved to running back and we moved to Tony Pollard. Of course, moving from Dallas to Tennessee for a bit of a fresh start and an opportunity to establish himself as a true RB1. And I mean, he wasn't spectacular last season, but he was a bright spot in what was a miserable season for the Titans. And he did a job when asked. He's had 3 1,000-yard rushing seasons in a row. And I probably don't see that changing in 2025. He might be someone else who benefits from that improved O-line. And he's likely to be a bit of a workhorse for the Titans. I think his kind of ADP of 27 undersells him a little bit, as I think he's probably going to replicate numbers that he's had over the last couple of years. So I expect him to be knocking on the door of a top 20 running back berth again, just because I think he will get the workload. And he's going kind of early round 7 in drafts. I think that's fair. And if he dropped to me there, he's definitely someone who I'd think about taking. And I think he'll probably exceed your projection. I think he might do slightly better.
It was only having the 5 touchdowns hurt from a fantasy point of view last year, but the volume was there, wasn't it? I think he was over 20 attempts every single game. So he's probably going to get you there on volume again. For a player you're taking at ADP 24 last season to give you 9 top 24 finishes, is probably about right, isn't it? It's what you sort of expect when you're taking a player there. And yeah, I see more of the same. I think I'm inclined to agree with you on that. Who is knocking on the door behind him?
Yeah, I mean, he does have competition. Tyjae Spears, definitely a huge talent, but injuries have very much blighted his career so far. Knee injury concerns date right back to the draft. They saw him drop to the third round where he was expected to go higher. And a couple of concussions last season kind of add further concerns. He's going to get game time in Cam Ward's rookie season, as you'd expect the offensive strategy to rely more heavily on the run game while Ward settles in. I think Pollard's going to be the starter, but Spears offers quite explosive potential, and he's got that pass catching in him as well. I suppose the issue from a fantasy perspective is reliability. When will he have good weeks? Maybe a decent flex option, but I think where he's going at about RB 40, late round 10, is probably about right.
It was after a season of offering you very little. He just exploded week 15-17, which, as a reminder, not only was he fans first, but was also a friendly stretch against running backs as well. So that was Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville, all of whom gave up more fantasy points to running backs than most teams. But he still finishes RB3, RB10, RB12. And I think that's the optimism, because he's got that in his locker if he gets the chance. It's just whether we will see that. He's probably ended up being the best fantasy player you didn't start in your playoffs at any point, because after one break, you don't go, oh, that'll happen again. After two, well, it's definitely that's all now. Yeah, it'll be an intro. I think, weekly. I think in hindsight, weekly flex option is possibly a little bit kind, but he's definitely more in the options than a definite weekly flex play. Is one that might be in consideration depending on the matchup. Before we move on to wide receiver, please do take a moment to take a quick pause, subscribe, like, give us a share as well. And then when you are finished with this show, go and check out one of the 31 other shows as we look at every single NFL team for your redraft leagues throughout this off-season. Ed, next up at wide receiver is a player that I don't think I can say I'm excited for from a fantasy point of view necessarily, but is a player that I really, really like, and I'm excited to see if he's got another year in him in a new location.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, Tyler Lockett is someone who I don't think you can dislike. He's a veteran now, at 32 years old, and he's been given a one-year contract in Tennessee after those 10 seasons in Seattle. I mean, there's no getting away from it. The last two seasons have seen a huge drop-off in production for Lockett, culminating in just 600 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns last year. He ended up as wide receiver 66, which is certainly not where he was drafted. But he's a very reliable pair of hands. And, someone that Cam Ward will be able to trust in his rookie season. It'll be interesting to see what sort of partnership they form. He's likely to be wide receiver 2 behind the next wide receiver that we talk about. But in a passing offense that's hardly going to set the world alight, I would imagine. Probably worth a stash on your bench. But beyond that, I'm struggling to look for massive upside in Lockett. I certainly don't think we're getting back to the pre-2023 era of someone who's going to get you big fantasy points.
No, I think he's a player I'm much more interested just to see watching the games how he is rather than actually plugging him into my lineup. So put potential streaming wide receiver, because we're going to have to see target share more than anything, aren't we? Look at the course of last season. Over the last few weeks, he only had more than 3 targets, 2 games the last half of last season. If he gets a few more targets, he could maybe find a little bit of flex value. I think that's if you're absolutely wiped out for wide receiver by Armageddon, he's a player that you might be able to take a bit of a gamble on. Next player up, though, and I think you say this next guy is like to be the wide receiver 1, but still I struggle to get excited about the wide receiver 1 at the Titans.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think we went with Lockett first because maybe we like him, but yeah, Ridley probably will end up as wide receiver 1. Remember, he was wide receiver 5 overall back in 2020, but then he missed almost 2 seasons with the injury and the ban for betting offences, and he's never really hit those heights since. He does look to be clear wide receiver 1 in Tennessee, and he's coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Also, over those last 2 seasons, he's played every game, which is a huge positive. He had a slow start to last season. He only had 1 score above 10 fantasy points in the first 7 weeks, but he was much more consistent after that down the stretch. He's going off the board at about wide receiver 36, which I think is good value. It does depend how Cam Ward settles and how much they commit to a passing attack with the rookie quarterback. But, there might be some value in picking up Ridley. And I agree, he's a more solid weekly flex play than Lockett.
And we've put on there that he's got 5 top 24 finishing 17 starts. No, that doesn't sound great, but you're drafting him as your wide receiver 28. Once again, that's probably a reasonable-ish return, to be honest. I think he's a player that where he's going at the moment, so have a quick look at ADP, he's going round 7 feels a little high to me, but round 8, if he's still there, he'll certainly be in consideration, I think, for a player that I might want to pick up.
Yeah, definitely.
Next up, we have a rookie. Do you just tune out there, Edward?
Same doubt. Yeah, sorry, Titans fans. It's just your receivers. But this one is exciting. The rookie, Elic Ayomanor. Again, I might have butchered his name, but tell us in the comments if I have. A really exciting talent. There was a lot of draft hype, but he ended up going in the 4th round. He was Stanford's #1 receiver for 2 seasons in an offense that otherwise struggled. So I think that says a lot about him. I think he's going to get opportunities. He'll get a chance to establish himself, maybe as the #2 receiver behind Ridley. But yeah, definitely someone to keep a close eye on as he might make that kind of breakthrough in his rookie season.
Yeah, so with all the question marks we put around Lockett and whether he's actually going to have anything left in the tank, we're ticking the box for Ayomanor. A rookie quarterback in your first year is then a question mark back the other side of that. But yeah, he's a player. I put watch the waiver there. He's not going to be picked up in very many drafts. He's got a very deep league. But if he emerged well, we see 1 or 2 receivers every year, especially the rookies that just carve themselves out a role where they're useful flex plays. Remember, we're not always talking about elite numbers week in, week out. We're talking players that can fit in, plug in everywhere, and he has a potential pathway to that. So yeah, Ayomanor is a player I'm interested to see how he shapes up. A player that I stopped being interested in after he let me down year on year and year of me trying to make him a my guy is a tight end you're going to talk about now.
Yeah, Chig. He's let a lot of people down, me included. Bags of potential. He always looks on the verge of a breakout season, but he's never quite broken through. Although, to be fair to him, he's been part of a dysfunctional offense for his whole NFL career. So I think we have to give him that. He started all of his seasons really slowly, which is a concern for fantasy managers. But he looks clear tight end 1. Ahead of other players who we'll talk about, including a rookie tight end. The problem with Chig, he's quite small framed, so he lacks the impact in the red zone. 6 touchdowns in 3 seasons are explained by that. He only had 1 target inside the 10-yard line last season, so he's not a red zone threat. Is he the #2 receiving option behind Ridley for Cam Ward? That's a question you have to, ask. Remember that old adage: a rookie quarterback's friend is his tight end. So, could you make a case for Chig actually carving out a decent role? I don't know. He's going undrafted in most of your drafts. I think that's fair enough because he's, he ended up as tight end 21 last year and tight end 21 the year before. So. I'm not very hopeful with Chig, but who knows?
It's the likely lack of volume, isn't it, as well? I think at best you can hope for 55-ish targets, and it's just not going to be enough for him to kind of have that production. And I put in there 4 top 12 finishes. I'm not interested in drafting a player that's going to get you that. Streaming tight end option once again is best if you're struggling for tight end. He's on the waiver wire and he's got a tight end friendly matchup. We've said this with quite a few tight ends around this point. He could be interesting potentially. Final players to consider that I think probably more likely to mention occasionally as shock waiver wire pickups or real value dice rolls in DFS. Any of the other potentially relevant players you're interested in, Ed?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, Treylon Burks, that season-ending ACL injury last season, but he was hardly relevant before that. He had just 3 receptions in 4 games. I think it says a lot. The Titans haven't exercised his 5th-year option, so they'll probably move on, and I'll be surprised if he gets much game time. Van Jefferson, journeyman and fantasy relevance. He has had 1 score of 10 or more points and 8 scores of 5 or more points in the last 2 seasons. Do not waste a pick on Van Jefferson, people.
Gunnar Helm's a player that I just want, with the uncertainty about Chig Okonkwo, can we rule out that Gunnar Helm isn't the tight end one by the end of the season? I'm not saying it's highly likely, but it's possible. He had a solid season last year in Texas. His ability to kind of force missed tackles was exciting at college. Well, if any of that transfers, he could be a bit of an interesting pick. Once again, don't go out and draft him and redraft. He is more, even in Dynasty, he's a taxi squad stash at best at the moment, but certainly a player that maybe we might end up mentioning.
Yeah, they invested a 4th round pick in him, so
yeah,
decent draft capital, so who knows?
So that I don't finish off just being negative about the Titans, what is your outlook for the Tennessee Titans this season, or am I right to be bleak?
Let's be positive. I don't think they will get the number 1 pick in the draft next year. So is that positive enough for you?
That'll do us. On that positive bombshell, I think we should wrap things up. We've said before, please do go and check out one of the other 31 shows as we go through every single team in the NFL through this offseason to prepare you for your redraft drafts. But I think that will do us for now. So from me, from Ed, goodbye. And from Malcolm, it's time for you to please take us home.
You have been listening to Pestle and Ed of TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Instagram and Twitter.